is really way down the country. Church is closed down. Just recently, I think there was an article in Niger that basically what need to know is they need food banks. They need all sorts of social activities just to make sure one way or the other, or maybe try to seek more, government funds for to stay open. And we're seeing that churches are closing down left, right, and center. So people, the attack on the church, even though they are just looking at a very, very very, very minority group of people or pastors or church leaders that have so much money, they think, oh, they are spending their money, where are they getting all their money from and all that. But I said that, it is with what we're seeing now. That's why I won't put it past, that the church actually can it really survive with this, especially in terms of finance, because churches are closing down. I was reading 3,500 churches got closed down in England. In the last 5 years. So it is, and if that trend should continue, then we know that indeed that this attack, and that's one of the reasons why I just think that some of the things we have talked about, that the challenges of the church, if these challenges are not quickly addressed, it could, especially in terms of finances. There are some other issues, but I think this one it will have it will really have a negative impact on the church. And also regarding the finance, that's why some now they will say, oh, they would rather want to stay at home. That they did churches at home. There were churches at home. They were having churches at home. What's the point of them meeting in churches and all that? So the attack on the church is huge, and I think that people need to start talking about these things, and people need to start really, really telling people that yes, you might see some people driving private jet, but if you look at the percentage of senior pastors driving private jet or having luxurious car, I've not looked at it before, I've not researched it before, but I can tell you that it's probably just going to be about 0.1%. So, but people using that as an opportunity to attack the church generally, I think is really wrong, and that's why I believe that if some of these issues are not addressed, as quick as possible, if some of these issues are not addressed, whether it's by discussion like what we are doing today, or in a theological way, in ways that we are able to communicate to them, definitely, the church, the church. I don't see how the church will be able to sustain, financially. And we know that, if we take away money from the church, basically the church is going to go down. Yes, we can say, we don't need money. Some will argue we don't need money to build the church. We don't need it, but we all know that that's not true. That's not true. That's not. So that's why I would just. I still have some other things to say, but
Yeah,
I just
but you
think
see,
that
I get your point, but I want to invite Pastor Michael into it again, because you see, when we look at this issue of money, do you think it's more predominant with the Pentecostal, kind of denominations, that the attack was so much on new generation churches compared with the Orthodox churches? Because we do not
Yes,
tend to get
thank
so
you
much
very much
attack
for
on the
bringing me in.
Orthodox churches like the way we get attacked, with the new generation church. And could it also be the fact that people, because don't just let us throw away the criticism of people, that could it be that what they were looking for is transparency?
Thank
Yes,
you very much,
over
sir,
to you,
for
Pastor.
bringing me. Thank you for bringing me in again. One thing is, I will agree with the issue of especially the youths and the millennial generations that are very phony and superficial when it comes to the way churches are being run. These people, they have at their disposal the help of technology to be able to know and be able to communicate easily among themselves. But according to what Pastor has said, I want to start from the fact that surely the church, the leadership of the church as a whole needs to be honest and be very transparent about their own personal flaws, about their own shortcomings, about what they do in the church. Because with this transparency and honesty, people will be able to take them their word for the truth. Because what we are talking about here is that when someone has taken Christ as his Lord and Savior, and he saw Christ as an example of what to follow. So if a pastor or a leader that he is following is full of some kind of lies, of things that cannot be easily be accounted for, then it will start to think, am I in the wrong or in the right congregation? So in that way, I am agreeing with our senior pastor on the fact that transparency and honesty will play a strong role in that. How will it play for that role? Evangelist Akin earlier mentioned about pastor using cars, having aeroplanes, private jets, and all those kind of things. If they are honest, if they are transparent about it, they will be able to explain to the church. Because most of these pastors, they have other work they do beside. Unlike those old and orthodox generations, where a vicar only serves the church and does not have any other business outside the church. But the new generation church, the new generation pastors, they have work they do. As for me, I still work. As old as I am, I still go to my work and I still receive salary every month. So if people do not work, they do not have a business, and they are riding big cars and all those kind of things, then we may start to challenge them. But most of these people, when you want to look at it, they may have some business aside beside the work of God. So now, if we now go to what Pastor actually asked at the beginning, the Orthodox and the new generation churches, we know that the Orthodox churches are well established. They have been established thousands of years ago, and they are running according to their own establishment. These churches have capitals. These churches have money. These churches have buildings. These churches have land. These churches have some kind of even gold in which I do not know about that, which I could try to investigate. They may even have gold that has been kept somewhere that continue to pay their bill as they go on. But in these new generation churches, when you look at it, for example, look at our church, for example. One thing we preach in our church is the gospel of Christ. And you will see, this makes some of the other churches not to be able to speak the truth of the word of God because of the fact that they need money in the church. As we have said, and as we have agreed with you, Evangelist Akin, that surely money and finance play a very strong, important role in any business, even including church organization. But one thing, when we try to separate the Orthodox and the new generation churches, they are of different category. More so, I need to mention that most of the new generation churches, they do not have the big organization like the Orthodox churches. Most of the churches may make people start to think, because it becomes like a personal business organization. That may be the way this youth can and the millennials start to look at it, that these people have funded a personal organization. But one thing that we should not throw away here is the fact that whether a small church, whether a big church, whether the Orthodox, whether the new generation, fund is very important.
Wow, fund is very important. Now, you've heard from the two gentlemen, evangelist perspective, that if the church continue with the trend of the attack on finance, which is already affecting in a way the membership, that churches are shutting down, members are dwindling, then was of the opinion that we need to do something about it. But Pastor Michael On the other hand, looking at the fact that how do we run the church without finance? And I still come back to this serious issue, which I'm going to bring back Evangelist Akin again for 2 minutes. For 2 minutes. If you have maybe we need to look at the what is a church. Are we really let me put it this way, do we really understand the purpose of the church, what the church is about? And those people that are going on attacking, criticizing or condemning, now do they really understand the purpose of the church? And those are the aims of affairs. Do they themselves, do they understand what the church is about? Because this is also an issue that we need to explore. Because when you get the purpose wrong, then the applications too will be wrong. Then the result and the perception is basically what we're going through now. Yes, over to you, Evangelist, in 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. Yes. So on the one part, uh, there's an expectation, I would say, of people regarding the church. They believe that the church, in a way, has to meet a lot of their needs. They believe the church, even when they put down their offering, they believe that, if once things goes bad, that the church, has to give them money, which is I understand where they are coming from, which is one part of it. Also, you talk about leaders as well. What's the reason for starting this church? What's the reason for what's the vision for starting a church? That's another part that first people don't really understand what a church is. And we thank God, because I don't know if those that are watching now, if you watch Impact Royal TV, I think Doctor has discussed before, what the church is truly. So some of this attack on the church has to do with understanding. People have over expectation of what they expect from the church, and then you have church leaders as well, especially just like Pastor said, church, the new generation churches, what do they think a church is? Some would just, is it that, I'm called and then I just started church. So yes, sir. So that the attack on the church is from every side. So so there's over expectation on the side of members. I would say members, or let me say members in quote, and also the leadership. What do they think a church? How should they run the church? How is the church supposed to be run? So, it's on both sides. I'm so excited that this discussion is really coming at this. I would say is a precarious moment where we need to really look at some of these issues and really see if we can, really press into some of these issues.
Yeah, thank you so much, Evangelist Akin, for that perspective. And in the last half an hour now, we've been going on about the issue of finance. But I also want to, chip this in. The early church, they survived the attack, but I've not been able to see precisely, the area that the early church was so much attacked because of finance. Because the kind of attack that the early church went through was completely different from the attack that the church is facing now. So finance was not part of it. How did they survive during their own time that the finance was not an issue and the church continued to grow, to expand? You understand? But here in today's world, today's church, the emphasis is so much on finance, and people that become so agitated, so much concerned about the whole issue, as you rightly put it, that there's some pastors living large which Pastor Michael tries to throw some light into it, that look, there's some pastors have a career, they work, they earn income, they have investments that yielded them, a lot of dividends, and they use that to maintain their life, to maintain their family, to do well. But that still boils down to the serious issue that we've been talking, that transparency and openness might have been the major cause of the attack on the church. So if we need to go further, because we talk so much about this issue, so I want us to, I want Pastor Michael quickly in 2 minutes, that do you subscribe to this issue of transparency as a way of curbing the attack on the church? Because when people see the way their money is being spent, look, like today, somebody said to me, because I was teaching from 9 to 4, and somebody said, okay, how do you justify, how do you justify that? So let me bring Pastor Michael in. How do you justify this? That the church gathered money, they built schools or higher institution. The perception was that they got the money from members' contribution, and they built schools, and some of the members cannot afford to go to the same school. So how do you defend that? How do you justify that?
Thank you very much, sir, for bringing in again. One thing I just want us to understand when we're talking about Christian per se, we are just not ordinary people. I mean, we are just like any ordinary people. But one that made the difference there is the fact that we have been called out, is the fact that we have dedicated our lives to Jesus, is the fact that we have become together and the Redeemer. So if we come together like this, one thing that we always is the fact that someone who is under the fruits of Christ, we must be trustworthy in whatever we do. And to be trustworthy is to become more accountable with whatever we do. Our accountability not only is necessary for the congregation, our accountability, apart from the congregation, it is also necessary for God Himself. So it is in our accountability that we will be able to be honest and transparent, to show the people this is how the money are being spent. And when it comes to the attack of people that are building schools, that even those people that contributed money cannot attend church schools. Let us start from this way. How did they build the school? Who had they call the name of the school, Christ Royal School. That is my own church. But do they know whether the founder just named it after that school, after that, the name of the church? Or is it the funding of the church that is used to fund the school? One thing we need to be very careful about when we throw things around, do we get to the bottom of how this started? Even if people do not go to church, there are people who are not pastors. They fund schools, they fund universities. But how did they get their money? Do you know where they borrowed the money? Do you know how they borrowed the money? So we cannot say it is because they are church pastors. That is what they use the money that people contributed to go and build school. And when they build the school, they did not allow people to come in. And again, if we go back to the old days, for example, I attended a Catholic school when I was young, nursery, primary, and secondary education. But in these Catholic schools, these were people who came from abroad and founded it in Nigeria. So you will see what these people do. Even in our Catholic school those days, we still pay money. In my secondary school, we paid money because it was never free. We had good and standard education. One thing we got to realize there, whether it's funded by the pastor through his own money or through the money of the church, there will still be a need to maintain that school. There will still be a need to teach adequate and well-qualified teacher into that school. Where would the payment of the teacher come from? It will come from fees that is paid. So it's not a case that I'm defending the pastor on this occasion today. As I've said earlier on, pastors, leaders of churches need to be really transparent. We have accountability. We are supposed to be accountable, not only to God alone, even to those that we carry together as our members.
Wow, thank you so much, Pastor. Thank you so much for that for that submission. You see, the issue here is transparency and accountability. You see, we expect the government that collect our tax, at the end of the year, to give, account of all the money that the government collected, the budget, how they spend it. So I want to believe that from your submission, similar things is expected of the church too, to be accountable and to be transparent. So the moment we do that from your submission, it will surely help, in reducing, if not completely, eradicate this issue of, attack on the church. But I want to bring us back again to this issue of attack on the church. As it's not something that just started now. It's something that the early church too went through. They had the attack, and their own set of attack was of two folds. There's one we call the internal problems and the external problems. The internal problem as a result of the conflict, disagreement amongst themselves, amongst you are Jew, you are Greek, you are Gentile, you are this, no, you circumcision, non-circumcision. Now, if you come back and look at today's church, do we want to say, with every confidence that today's church too is working in an agreement, or perhaps we're the one that opened our doors for the attack to come in? Because you discover that, I belong to this church, I belong to that denomination. We become major in minor and minor in major. So is there anything you will suggest that today's church that we can do to make the church of Jesus Christ to be more effective, to a point that we'll be able to reduce this attack? Or perhaps that question will be for Evangelist Akin. Then I'll ask these second questions to Pastor Michael. So perhaps the church too needs to look for another means of raising funds to fund their programs and activities without depending on the church member. Could that be a very good suggestion, a good proposal? So let me first bring in Evangelist Akin.
Thank you, sir. So yeah, just like you rightly mentioned, the issue of accountability. I think it's just that I don't want. The thing is, one of the reasons why, even some of the reasons why we're seeing churches building schools, still because they're looking for a way to make the church sustainable. So but some people, I've had some people tell me before that, why did Jesus need to do so? Did Jesus really need to build school to sustain ministry? So we can see that some of the attack that we are seeing on the church is we are partly responsible for it. The church is partly responsible
it's
for it. When I mean the
self-inflicted.
church, I mean most times I'm talking about the church leaders, sir.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so
I'm just.
I mean, yeah, I mean, so some of this attack, we open the door for it, and fundamentally, they open the door for because I've had someone tell me that before that everyone is you have you're a church leader, then you start building school, and he was telling me to my face that wait, if we ask them, how many of them did Jesus tell them to build school? But the person was just telling me that, and I looked at the person, and I began to understand some of the things he was saying. So some of this attack really, we opened ourselves to it. And when I say we, I'm talking about fundamentally the church leaders. They opened themselves to this attack, in their way to find a way to be sustainable, and then they do some other things. And when they do some other things, because they do some other things, they are unable to really, there's no way to be able to tell people about that. And then because of that, then they expose themselves. So so you also mentioned earlier, before I just hand over, like the internal conflict. Yes, internal conflict. They say some will say we can't worship with Sele. Some will say we cannot. We are Pentecostal, we can't worship with CAC. So that internal is still there today, and just like the way it was with the early church. But that I'm not too worried about that one, because I know at the end of the day, that one, there's a way, whether it's Sele or whether it's each church, in a way will find a way, to always, get members, and will, but I think basically some of the challenges we are facing today is because, just like I said earlier on, that in a for us to move into a bit of the social space, you build a school because you want to sustain the church. You think of businesses outside, and then people will start wondering, and some of these things, did Jesus build a school? Some will say, did Jesus build a school? I just read an article on Guidance that says that's why a lot of churches, they need to open food banks, they need to do social studies, because they need to keep the church viable. But if there is proper teaching, if believers know their responsibility, then the church will have money, because they will give to the church the same way the early churches were giving to, they were, and if the leaders are accountable, just like we have said, we won't have some of this problem. But basically, the church opened itself for a lot of this attack, and that's why I know you are a doctor, you are a prophet as well, and I discovered that in the last 1 or 2 weeks, so a lot of things has opened up to me, that the attack on the church, some of this discussion, we need to really start having this discussion and see how much we can change how things are. Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So I think we're getting somewhere. So let me quickly make this. If any member of the public, if you want to call in, or you have a question, or you want to contribute, you can call this number 07462 530 551. 07462 530 551. And we'll be able to pick your call, and you'll be able to make your contribution as well. See, because this is a serious issue affecting the church. It's not something that we're going to discuss in one day. It's going to continue for a period of time, because the last 45 minutes now, we've been going on one particular point that's been generating attack on the church. And I just wonder why that particular point has become a major problem of finance. Why finance has become a major problem? Because there are other so many factors that we can look into. That the church also needs to work on to make things much better. But if the major one that we're talking about at the moment is finance, then we just have to do something about this issue. But if there's anything I'm going to take away today, is about this issue of transparency and openness. Because once you are open and you are transparent, I want to believe that people will be more than happy and willing to go any length to support so to support their church, and but because we do, when we start to do things in secrecy, we shrouded everything in secret, that only just few people that are privileged to know what is going on, and members do not really know what and what you do with their money, how you spend the money and all that. That will breed all these sorts of problems or that we've been talking about. And I sincerely want to say thank you to both of you, because it has, I also believe that has opened us to, so many issues. But taking that on again, now, if that have to make us to look into, I'm not saying you should look at it from theological approach to the issue of tithe and offering. I just want to ask you this straightforward questions. These straightforward questions. And the straightforward question goes to Pastor Michael about the issue of tithe and offering. Now, yes, the issue of tithe and offering.
Yeah.
So is one of the major attack on the church is about this issue of tithe and offering. Now there's some group of people that believe it's not biblical. There's explanation that is only that when you're quoting Malachi and all that, the Bible is only talking about fruits and so on and so forth. You have various teachings on this subject that even those that have been very faithful, they become seriously concerned. A lady told me about 2 weeks ago that yes, that she believes in tithe and offering, but she doesn't pay tithe and offering. That she rather give her money to the less privileged. And you see that so many Christians, so many church members are now aligning to that thought. That yes, I am a Christian, I'm going to church, but I rather give my money to so and so organization. But when you probe them further, you discover that the issue that you've been responding to is still the bane of their contention. That look, openness, transparency, and the minister living a flamboyant life, that we're not going to find the Orthodox ministers living that kind of life. So I want to bring you back to this, that what's your position regarding the tithe and offering?
Thank you very much, sir. My position regarding tithe and offering has never waned for a second, because whether we like it or not, tithing, when they call it, is the first aspect of whatever belongs to us, whatever we have as income. In the old days, in the Old Testament, when they were talking about the tithing, it was said that the firstborn of their cattle, the firstborn of their calves, shall be given unto God. Also, they pay the tithing in form of the produce of their land. One thing is that when you pay a tithe, if we decide and say that we belongs to God, if we decide that we are children of the Most High God, if we decide that everything that God is ours, if we already proclaim that everything we are belongs to God, then why should the issue of tithing become problematic?
Well, I can answer you. I can answer you that, Pastor.
I'm
Yes.
still coming, sir. I'm still coming, sir. So if we believe in those things, why should it be a problem? Because what we're talking about here, if I believe whatever I am is God, then if he has to give, if I'm to give him a 10% of what I have, then I will do. Because everything we do must be alongside with faith. And we need to look at the faith of the people in this generation is waning. And when the faith is waning, you're just thinking that you just giving it out, probably to the pastor, probably to the leadership, to do whatever they want to do with it. It is not so. And again, I want to bring something in. You are the doctor of philosophy, and you will be able to correct if it is not. When Jesus himself was in Jerusalem, he was asked to pay a temple tax. And he did not have money on him. He had to ask Peter to go and fish and bring the first fish which he caught. He opened the fish, and because he's a man who is full of wisdom, that is called sonesis, he knew what was before that thing became. So they got the money. He had to pay the temple tax. And when they wanted to catch him at a stage, they asked him, is it legal or illegal to pay tax? He asked them, give me a coin. And he said, whose head is on the coin? They said Caesar's. And he said, pay unto Caesar. What is Caesar? Jesus never actually said anything against tax, as people start to pick up today. I believe if we have good faith in the God we serve, the issue of tithe should not be our much concern.
Yes, I get your point, Pastor. But you see, the whole thing is coming back to theological education, because when we sometimes tell our congregation, and by telling them to tithe or to give, that yes, their blessing is attached to that, and also that if you do not give, that you cannot prosper. You see, all these have caused a lot of issues, and the question is that what about those who are not church members, who became multi-millionaires or billionaires, and they do not pay tithe and they prosper? So it is coming down to what kind of teaching is the church teaching, that when they are touching giving unto God to prosperity.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, sir. The teaching really matters. What we speak on the pulpit, because when people come to church, they see the pastor, they give him the respect that every word that comes out of him is the word from God. And if it's the word from God, and he's saying that if you do not pay your tithe, you will not prosper. Even though this is attached to Malachi, which we normally quote, but one thing we got to realize here, it depends on the faith of the individual. Remember those days regarding the disciples and the first fathers of the church, when they were gathering together, they gathered together and share everything commonly. People that had houses before, they went to sell the house. They bring the money to the purse of the church. We remember what happened to that family that keep some of the money behind. We remember what happened to them. But one thing here, everything depends on how, as you have mentioned earlier on, how do we really understand the word of God?
Thank you, Pastor. I think your network is messing up. So, yeah. So let me bring Evangelist Akin back again as we try to round up. Now, as I've said, if you want to contribute, you can call this number 07462 530 551. 07462 530 551. If you want to contribute or you want to ask any of these gentlemen questions, or perhaps if you disagree with their position on this issue, then you can call in now and I'll put your question straight away to them. Or you can text and I will read it out. To the gentlemen, I will be able to find answers to read. So the number is 07462 530 551. 07462 530 551. If you have any question or you want to contribute, then you're very much welcome to contribute or to ask questions. And I'll make sure that I put your question across to them and they'll be able to answer. I want to say a very big thank you to Man of Grace, Pastor Emmanuel. Thank you for joining. Ramot Akinade, thank you for joining. Buki Akinleye, thank you for joining. Andrew Amposa, thank you for joining. And those who join on YouTube, we sincerely appreciate you that you join us, even though the network was a bit funny when we started, but thank God that it's a bit stable now. But before we go, and it's this same question that is applicable to both of you, that the church today, in your own view, if you continue the way, is somebody trying to call or sending a message? Okay. Now, that the church today, in your own view, and based on the attack on social media and many other things that the church is going through, do you sincerely and honestly believe that, because you mentioned earlier that on a regular basis that many churches are shutting down, because memberships are becoming dwindling, then online programs have taken over a lot of the worship, a lot of the activities, and all the social justice and social provider have taken away so many of the worship. But so, do you believe, I've come back to my question, wholeheartedly believe that in spite of all the attack that the church is going through and is happening in this 21st century, will the church survive? We've only been looking at money, but will the church survive? And the same question that we asked Pastor Michael too. So over to you, Evangelist Akin, in 1 minute.
Yes, this church will. I honestly hope that the church will survive, but I also think that it will survive with it will be very very little survival. That's why I think that it will survive, but it's just going to be very very little survival. And when I mean the church, I'm talking about the church universal, meaning the old church universal, because I believe many denominations will continue to close down, but the church will survive just as as a church universal. But I think with the trend that is going on, it will be very slim. It will be a very slim survival. Just if you look at the church in Revelation, some of these churches now, the church look at Turkey now. Some of these churches in Turkey, you said that before, Doctor. So they closed down. So the church will survive, but I think it's going to be on a very, very, it's going to be a slim survival. Survival.
Okay, thank you. The church will survive, but a very slim survivor. Right. Okay, Pastor Michael.
From my own perspective, to say to survive. Not even slim, but as already written from the beginning. Because no matter what those people or those that the fathers of Christianity had gone through, as Dr. mentioned it, Aaron, they went a lot of persecution, thinking that we will not be many today. He always teach something that only 12 people started together, and we are now billions in the world. Whether we like it or not, it is the will of God. No matter how tight it will be, the church is going to survive. I do not doubt it for once that it will not exist for all time. Church will exist for all time, or at least till the second coming of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Wow, that the church will exist at all times till the second coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, once again I want to say thank you for joining me today on this talk show. about the survival of the 21st century church. There are so many factors mitigating against it, but today we've only been able to discuss the issue of finance, the issue of money. And we've also been able to see that money is essential for the gospel because the church to pay bills, they have responsibilities. We also want to do, evangelism. We also want to show hospitality to people, and wants to care about our congregation, want to care about our environment. We could see that during the COVID crisis that a lot of people depended on the church to meet their needs, to support them, to for them to survive. And if only we know the amount of money that the church have to spend to keep members of the community alive during the COVID crisis. So I want to align my view with you guys' view that yes, the church will survive, but also we need to do what the early church did. When the attack was so much, the persecution was so much, they sat down and began to make adjustments where necessary. Could it be this attack is a wake up call? Could it be a wake up call for the church too? Pardon? Yeah. Could it be a wake up call for the church? Because yes, I don't want us to look at it that the attack on the church is so evil. It might even be a wake up call that yes, we cannot continue to do business as usual. That we can't continue to do business as usual. That there is need for us as a church to wake up to reality, and the reality is that let's look inward, because our inability to look inward basically happens to be the reason that led into all this condemnation and criticisms and an attack on the church. As you rightly said, Pastor Michael is raising his hand. He still wants to talk. Okay.
Yes, I just want to quickly add something to it. You mentioned earlier on that maybe church should look outside the congregation for contributing money in order to be able to establish, carry out every program. Yes, church can go that way. Also, AKIN mentioned the fact that build the schools can be a way of investment. So church should start, as you have rightly mentioned, it may be a way for us to start to think outside the box, so that we will be able to go out for investment. If you look at the Orthodox churches, when we were talking earlier on, I just Googled something regarding the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, I will read from there. He said the Catholic Church owns approximately 177 million acres of land worldwide, making it one of the largest landowners globally. The Catholic Church in the United States alone has an estimated annual spending of $170 billion. The Vatican City has about an endowment estimated to be $15 billion. So this will be a way to actually push the church out, that whatever money we have nowadays, we should start to do some kind of investment. That's what I was wanting.
Yes, thank you very much, Pastor, for that beautiful contribution and the statistics that you've been able to Google out. Okay, but one of the things that for me as a teacher, that Google is never, the fact that from Google is not something that in academic world that we subscribe to, because but at least
we are talking about money now, sir.
Yeah, so at least it gives us a little bit of because we cannot substantiate that that statistics to be absolutely correct, but we do know from the study of church growth that there are some churches that do invest, in industries or in business, or in so that they burden on their membership about contribution, about levy, will be so minimal. Now, one of the things that I've come to understand is that even back home in Nigeria, if your church just started, some people don't go to a new church that have just started because they know that they will tax you and tax you and tax you and tax you with money. So they prefer to go to churches that are already been established, churches that are already loaded, so that there will be lesser burden on them. But with all this put together, just want to know from the topic itself that the 21st century church will survive the attack based on the fact that, yes, we acknowledge areas of challenges. So that there are areas of challenges are things that we need to work on. We need to look at, we need to be, transparent and honest with what we do with the money. We also need to teach, the undiluted doctrine by educating our members the importance of supporting their church, so that they should not see the tithe and offering as a way of being blessed by God, but as a way of supporting their church as an obligation that is upon them to support God's work in the assembly that they belongs to. So if we begin to operate and so some of these points that you guys have mentioned, I want to believe that yes, the church of 21st century will survive if we stand by the scripture, Matthew 16:18, that Jesus said that he will build his church and that no gate of hell will prevail against it. So we want to stand on that authority and on that concept that yes, the church will survive, but there's still some other points that we need to establish, not just about the problem of finance alone. I believe that next week we still look into other factors, then I will come back again to look into advice or perhaps way forward for the church of 21st century to be able to take its rightful position, in the world today. And I've said many times that there are three institutions that is mandated to rule the world: the political, the economic, and the religion. So which in other words, the church happens to be part of that institution. So our voice needs to be heard. But for our voice to be heard, there are things that we need to do rightly.
Yeah.
So there are things that we need to work on. There are things that we need to do properly. And there is need for accountability. So if we're able to do those things, then you can be rest assured that the church of the 21st century will survive the attack. If the early church can survive it, then I believe that the 21st century church too will survive. But there are things that we need to do. Let's take the attack at the moment, not as a cause, but as a wake-up call, wake-up alarm for the church to get its act right. Instead of, getting it right, we continue to attack one another. And that is not the way forward for the church to go. So, gentlemen, I want to say thank you to all of you. And I pray that the Lord will bless you and bless your ministry. Amen. It is my prayer that the Lord will keep you with wisdom and you continue to be relevant in society, in your ministry, in your family, that during your own time, that the church of 21st century will survive and Amen. The church will not collapse, the church will not go down. So this is what I have come to, bring to you today, ladies and gentlemen, on Talkshow. Once again, Evangelist AKIN, thank you for your time. Pastor Michael, thank you for your time. So I look forward to have you guys again for the second segment of this 21st century attack on the church. Next week, Saturday, same time, same place. But before we go, subscribe to Impact Royal TV on YouTube or on Facebook. It is free. So it is free. And you can be rest assured that there is going to be different men and women of God that will be coming on this platform. They are going to be businessmen, they are going to be entrepreneurs, they are going to be, people that can add value to your life that will be coming on this channel to share their experience with us. And there is something cooking. I can assure you there is something cooking. We have just started. And pray that Impact Royal TV has come to stay as a channel of blessing to many people. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I want to say thank you to Ramoth Akinade, thank you to Buki Akinleye, thank you to Reverend Emmanuel, Man of Grace, thank you to Andrew, thank you to others that are watching on YouTube. Until such a time will come your way again, my name is Dr. Tayo Ogumefun. God bless you. And okay, from Pastor Michael, are you saying? Okay, now,
Much love.
Evangelist Akin.
Thank you so much. See you next week.
God bless you and have a wonderful